This is the DAR Today podcast, and I'm your host, Brooke Bullmaster Stewart. Well, we have some really exciting things in today's episode. In fact, so much I want to hustle to get to it all. You know that we're a genealogical society. We are members due to the fact that we're all directly descended from a person who, in some way, aided in the cause of the Revolutionary War in America. Well, to that point, as most of you know, there were others who came from other countries to help us in that endeavor as well. Well, finding these patriots, that presents challenges, doesn't it? When we look for our American patriots, we can look at census records or land grants or deeds or tax records, but finding these others, that's where we've had some great challenges in the past in our society. But in the wisdom of our executive board, under the leadership of Mrs. Wright, there is a new committee, the Specialty Research Committee, that is helping us find our more elusive patriots. Without those sometimes obvious records, those from Spain or Italy or France, the Dutch patriots, patriots of color. We'll also have a segment that I have been anxiously awaiting the moment where we could show it. It was a special trip we were so honored to attend, a trip to the National Archives in Seville, Spain last November. Oh, the things we saw and learned there. Now, our interview with the Specialty Research Committee went a little longer than we normally do on our episodes, but the information. It was difficult to cut it any shorter. So I say this as we don't want you to miss this segment about the National Archives visit after that interview. A quick thanks to those who've sent in their pictures and videos showing how you experienced the DAR Today podcast. We'll be playing those in a coming segment. But next week, we'll be asking for your participation in another bit of a project, so stay tuned for that. Well, let's jump into today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. And hey, thanks so much for being here with us today. Well, Anthony Startz, thank you so much for being here with us today. We so appreciate you taking the time. We love hearing about your new committee. I'm going to let you introduce it to everybody today. Will you tell us you are the national chair. Tell us about your committee.
Thank you, Brooke, for having me today. I have to give a plug for your podcast. I have so enjoyed listening to them. And today I'm happy to be here to tell you all about the Specialty Research Committee. We are a committee that was started during the current administration. Pamela Wright, our current President General, this was really a vision that she had, and it has twofold. The committee has a twofold prong, if you will, in terms of goals. First, it is to educate our members and the public on the role of patriots that are not as well known in the American Revolution, and to look also at helping with applications in these difficult research areas. And we've started with 7 platforms, and we spend a good bit of time sharing with people what specialty research is. I still feel there's quite a bit of, well, what is specialty research? What are we? And what are we not? And so we agreed upon taking what had originally been in the previous administrations as minority research and pulling it out and adding the foreign allies that we really felt we needed to include. So today there are 7 platforms. And first we have the countries that aided. We have France, we have Spain, we have the French Canadians, which is a very small group of patriots that are not well known, the African American patriots, the Jewish patriots, the Native American patriots, while small in number because so many sided with the British, we really do have some record sets that go back to some of those patriots as well. And we added, after the committee began, the Dutch involvement in the American Revolution. Those Dutch bankers were critical in helping get the aid from the Spanish and the French. And so one of the things that's been most exciting is we have had the opportunity to attend, and DAR has sponsored conferences related to African American research, Afro-American historical and genealogical societies. And this coming fall, their conference is going to be in person in Charleston, South Carolina. So we're very excited to be sponsoring that event again. We're also this year going to be sponsoring for the second year in a row the IAJGS, which is the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. It was in Philadelphia last year, and Sarah Sukol, head of our genealogy department, went along with myself and Karen Pogoloff and Ellen Coet, who heads up our Jewish genealogical platform. Now, this coming year, it is going to be in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and DAR will also be a sponsor again. And it's really a wonderful opportunity to share with that Jewish genealogy community who DAR is and why we would have an interest in Jewish research and in those Jewish patriots that were here very, very early and either fought or rendered aid, quite a bit of aid to the American Revolutionary cause. So the Jewish platform has been a wonderful one to support. We have great resources in all of these platforms. I do want to say we have also supported a number of Hispanic genealogical conferences around the country, particularly in Texas, where I am. We've had volunteers attend staff at table to provide information about Spanish research and how someone who descends from the Spanish who were here so early, that they might connect and have an ancestor who rendered aid and helped in our cause for independence.
So tell me a little bit more about the Jewish patriots. Why has that information been elusive in the past?
Well, you know, Brooke, our ancestor database does not have anything in there related to ethnicity, race. We know a female patriot because she might have been a spouse or a wife. And of course, I'm a girl with a boy's name. So I'm sensitive to that. But we did not categorize our patriots by their religion. So it's only come to light over the years that there are a number of patriots who happened to be Jewish based on the records that were provided by members who joined on those patriots. And also our national vice chair for the Jewish platform is Ellen Coet, and she is very involved in the American platform for Jewish Gen. And their goal is to preserve and record and index records in temples and synagogues all across the country. And so there's a huge initiative, if you will, to find volunteers who can help with some of these projects. And Ellen is really an expert in this area and has just been such a resource for us. And so she has, over the years, taken time to find a lot of these elusive patriots. And one of the most important things that we have done as a new committee is, if you go to our specialty research committee page on the DAR members website and our Daughters Online community, you will find not only videos that you can show to members at a chapter meeting, but you will also find brochures and resources to help you in searching for records in all of these platforms. I will say our most robust platform in terms of documents in our library to help you search for Patriot is, of course, the Spanish library. But if you go to the Daughters Online community and you go to our page, our landing page, and go in our library, we have folders of all 7 of the research platforms. So if you're interested in more information about the Dutch or African American research, you have a prospective member that comes to you, and in doing her research, you find, oh my goodness, this is a Spanish surname, or oh goodness, this could be a French name. You can go to the doc and go in the library and find resources. And I think another very important point is, up in New England, there's so many people who descend from those French Canadian patriots, but the minute they see a French name in their lineage, they ignore it because, oh, they're French. They were in Canada.
They go over there. Yeah.
They weren't doing anything to help us. But
wow.
If you listen to Debbie Dway, there are hundreds of thousands of people in New England who descend from those French patriots that we have not captured as members.
Wow. Isn't that something? When you brought up the fact about the elusive, the Jewish patriots, it did bring to mind the fact that so much of what we do when we look for those records will go to church records.
Yes.
And it's like, well, yes, of course, I guess that's right. You would go to the synagogues. So you're finding all these pockets of resources that we in the past have not done, right? They haven't been tapped yet. And now with things online, that must be the most exciting thing.
Well, it is, and we also have we also have discovered that there's still so much yet that is not online, and
Wow.
it's my sister and I have been in the archive in Mexico City twice, and this past year we were in Seville, Spain, in the archive there, looking for records. There's while there's a great amount that is digitized, and in many cases we can thank Family Search for their work, particularly now their new AI platforms that help you read lots of documents. There's some very interesting things going on there. But there is so much that is still out there that is not digitized, and it's our goal to have team members on each of the platforms go find those records. And I do want to quickly go back to our ancestor database and how we know who might be a French patriot or might be a Spanish patriot or the elusive people of various backgrounds that might have been African American. How do you know they were an African American patriot? We have these amazing pension records, Revolutionary War pension records that actually show what their background was if they were African American. So in some cases, Debbie Dway has created a list on her Web Skills webpage of African American potential patriots who are not proven and the ones that are, based on those records that tell us who they were. And of course, with Spanish, it'll give you the surname. But under the Spanish crown, for example, in Louisiana, your last name might have been French, Acadian, might have been German, might have been English, but you don't know the background of that particular individual. We keep some manual list of Spanish patriots because they served under Spanish America. That's how you know they were a Spanish patriot, or by their place of birth, possibly. That's a clue that helps you. And of course, the surname.
There's so much to that, isn't that?
Yes,
Really exciting to hear. Now, I got the great pleasure of being with you in Seville at the archives there. And of course, this being the 100th anniversary of the DAR's acceptance of Spanish patriots, of recognizing the fact that we accept Spanish patriots and that they served and aided in the cause of the American Revolution. What can you tell us about those archives and things that are related to that?
Well, I have to tell you, that was my second trip last year to the archive with my sister and another DAR member in Spain by the name of Christine Sostrom. And Christine is our current day Irene Wright. She lives in Seville. She is in the archive pulling things for DAR members all the time. And it takes us back to that 100 years ago when those records were first extracted. And how it came about was there was a gentleman in New Orleans by the name of Theodore Dimitri who wanted to join the Sons of the American Revolution. And in his family papers, he found that his great-grandfather had been a lieutenant in the Louisiana Regiment fighting under Galvez and was a participant in the expedition into West Florida. And so that kind of opened up that our war for independence was really something more than just what happened in the 13 colonies. It was a global war, and there was a lot happening around the Gulf and in Texas and in Louisiana and West Florida. And as we know, West Florida or Florida went all the way to the Mississippi River and had become British after the French and Indian War. Spain wanted that back, but it also gave them an opportunity to ally with the French and keep the British from going up the mouth of the Mississippi and giving us that important aid with supplies up over to Fort Pitt and over to George Washington and his troops. Now, so with that new SAR member wanting to join, Robert Churchill, who was the president of the Sons of the American Revolution, found that there were more records in Spain, and he needed those records, the militia list, the regimental list. He needed those, and he needed to find boots on the ground. And that is where Irene Wright comes into play and our story about her. Irene was born in Lakewood, Colorado, in the 1870s. Her father owned the gold mine in Ouray, Colorado. After a year at Roanoke College. She decided not to go back. Her father had passed away, and she went to Mexico City and spent a year there as a governess to the vice president of the country and practiced her Spanish. And that is where she fell in love with the Spanish colonial records. So she comes back to Colorado, goes back to Virginia, finishes her 4-year degree, then gets a second degree from Stanford University. So then she says, this Spanish thing is my love, it's my passion. She takes her mother with her with gold nuggets sewn into the hem of her skirt and goes to Havana, Cuba in about 1910, 1911. In 1912, she joins DAR and joins the Havana chapter. She starts a newspaper. She writes the first definitive history of the island of Cuba, which today is still used as the primary source for the early period of Cuban history. In about 1915, she leaves and goes to Seville, Spain. And at that time, the Carnegie Endowment was sending researchers to various archives all over Europe to extract records related to the founding of our country. So the Carnegie Endowment was paying for researchers to go to Mexico, Canada, England, Germany, France, and Spain, and in the Netherlands probably as well. So Irene was one of those people that was already there on the ground and was utilized by researchers there. Now, Robert Churchill found out that she was there, and over the course of a 3 or 4 year period, she extracted the names of about 2,600 men who were in the militias in the various towns in Louisiana. Those men were primarily of French and Acadian and German extraction. Places today like Opelousas, Attakapaw, which is today St. Martinsville, the German coast, as well as the Louisiana regiments, which were mostly the men who were in New Orleans proper. So Irene extracted that information, sent it to Robert Churchill, who literally published it 100 years ago yesterday, March 5th, 1925. That book was published. And it was right after that actually it was February of 1925, that ruling by the executive board was passed to accept Spanish service under the Spanish crown and the Galvez expedition. So literally we are celebrating 100 years. Now, in that 100 years, there are ineligible roughly 2,600 names. We have only proven a little more than 600. So we have a tremendous work ahead of us to get the word out and share with people how important that is. And those descendants live everywhere, up the Mississippi Valley, all the way to St. Louis. There were 2 large settlements there. There was a Battle of St. Louis. There was just so much of that history, as we talked earlier, that is there's just so much that it's just difficult to cover it all.
If you had any idea that the work she did, because if she had not gone there and been, like you said, boots on the ground, that what she did, the outpouring that came, and the results that came from that, such important work. I love that she was a DAR member. That's pretty exciting as well.
And her ancestor was from New Hampshire, and the correspondence that went back and forth from Havana to Washington to her join on her Patriot, her research ability just comes through in that paperwork itself. And she ended up staying in Spain for more than 25 years and did research for the Stetson family on the founding of the University of Florida. And she comes back to the United States at the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War and brings with her a child that she adopted that I've gotten to know, her granddaughter, who is about my age. And she says that her mom was found on the steps of a church, an abandoned baby in the early 1930s. Irene adopts this child, brings that child back to Washington, D.C., raises that child as a single woman, and ends up working for the State Department and becomes one of the first archivists at the Library of Congress. Her background and her history of what she contributed to the early history of our country out of those Spanish archives, and then back here in the United States, she's truly a remarkable woman. And it also led to the España DAR chapter in Spain, putting her as a woman in American history because of her work. It was just so important.
So all of this, of course, is really exciting. And for those who are excited about this, or they might have a patriot that they're thinking of that's been elusive, that falls under one of these platforms that you've mentioned, how can they get involved? Or tell us about that.
Well, that has been one of the most exciting things because when we started, DAR's 185,000 members. How am I going to find people who might have experience in Dutch research or Jewish research, much less African American or Spanish, which are two of the really largest areas that we have the most interest. And so, as people have come to the committee with questions, or I need help with this, or I need help with that, we have found that we have so many members under the Lineage Research platform that really want to learn how to do African American research or Spanish research or Native American research, that people are, coming and looking at our resources on our landing pages and in our library in the doc, and wanting to take a crack at it before they run out, hit a brick wall and then need more help. So that has been really exciting, because the goal of this committee is to one of the goals is to really expand our bandwidth of knowledge to members who love that research and genealogy side. And I get often asked, well, I don't know how to do Spanish research. I don't know how to do African American research. Start as you would any other application. Start with the applicant or the prospective member and do the first 3 generations, and go back as far as you can. Build that tree out in all directions. And then when you hit a brick wall, then you go to your state resources, exhaust those state resources, because you're going to find in most cases there are people at the state level that can help you. The California work is so important that's going on right now.
Yeah.
One of the most exciting things that has happened during the beginning of this committee is that we have had the executive board really understand the need to open up more avenues for membership for women. As we look at the backgrounds and the variety of peoples and cultures in our country, we have more interest in people from different backgrounds to join DAR. So in order to have those avenues for people to join, we now have Presidio soldiers in California whose descendants are eligible, Presidio soldiers in Texas whose ancestors are eligible. We've had the cattle ranchers, but now having those Presidios is huge. The island of Cuba, if your ancestor was in Cuba, not just on the Galvez expedition on one of those ships that went to the battles, if your ancestor was serving on the island of Cuba, which is thousands of soldiers that were there under the Spanish crown, that's going to open up a lot of members, particularly in the Florida area. And we're super excited about that. Also need to interject that the DAR members in California and in Texas are working really hard to expand membership and educate and get the word out about these new Presidio soldiers that are eligible as patriots. And it's been very exciting to watch.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time. There's so much more to your committee, and we are just so restricted by time today. But I will say, I would encourage members to go look at your page on the members' website. There is so much there. I love that page because I found things I didn't even know I was excited about to learn there. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And also, let's encourage people to join our page, our committee page on the Daughters Online community. Our library there is chock full of resources, and that is really an exciting place to join the conversation. So thank you, Brooke, for having me. Most appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks.
As Anthony referenced in her interview, the President General, Executive Board, and a few others were privileged to visit the National Archives in Seville, Spain last November. The head archivist there prepared so many fantastic documents for us to review, truly historic artifacts that wove a story of America's early connection with Spain. As women do who are used to trying to find primary sources and documents, all of us were mesmerized by what she had to show us. We had so much fun seeing all of these documents here in Spain's archives, but all about our wonderful country and its founding. As her accent was very thick, I'll help with the basic translation of some of the things she said. First of all, we're going to find José de Galvez. José de Galvez was the uncle of Bernardo. He was a very important person here in Spain. He knew very well the public administration in America, and he belonged to the Enlightenment movement to change the administration. With another document, she went on to show us how information was sent from America to Spain, all about what was happening here at the time. She says, Bernardo de Galvez, in 1777. Bernardo de Galvez. Here you have the signature.
The sign.
In this moment is Bernardo de Galvez, governor of Louisiana, that is giving information to the Spanish authorities. And again, they explain in few words. They're very quick, sending records, very clear, who is who with the American colonists.
With the American colonies.
This is an expression special for Spain. The American colonists are not the British colonists. They are too different. They're different in these records. Because when they want to speak about the English, they say English, los ingleses. They don't use the word British, they use English. But the American colonists, colonos americanos, are other things that in this moment are not the same. They knew that it was different. The next document she had to show us was extraordinary. She says, in this file, we have the records of the Convention of Williamsburg. Now, what she's referencing here is the first Virginia Convention that was held, as she mentioned, in Williamsburg, Virginia in 1774. Now, Virginia gentlemen had met for these conventions before, but this meeting was entirely different. Virginia's leaders had assembled as an independent political body that would not answer to the governor, parliament, or the monarchy. Yet the convention's boldest step was perhaps simply to assemble without official permission. They decided many things here, but one of the most important, they chose a slate of influential leaders to send to the First Continental Congress, which was meeting the next month. Their decisions defined colonial resistance for years to come. So the record they have here in the archives confirms all of this, as they had Spanish emissaries, if you will, getting this information to pass on to Galvez and in turn to the Spanish authorities. They wanted to know what was happening with this new government being formed, wanting to know about their allies. She continues on. So we have here, it's in Spanish, but they are very well informed about what's happening in Williamsburg.
So they had spies and Spanish spies in Williamsburg.
Yes.
So sneaky little Spanish.
And here, a record that for me is very important. It's written in English, not in Spanish. New Orleans. She went on to talk about Galvez and things that were happening with him there in New Orleans. She was then showing us how they have records that are in English, translated to Spanish, but both are signed to say both records in English and Spanish are true.
To say both records in English and in Spanish are true. Here we have
Annapolis.
Annapolis,
The 23rd of December, 1783. This is the speech of General Washington. It says, today at 12 o'clock, General Washington has appeared before the general audience and has given a very tender speech. And he has resigned his commission in the army. So she here is, of course, referencing the infamous moment that Washington resigned his commission. And here are the major details about this event, right here in the Spanish National Archives. And we are seeing in person these handwritten documents telling us this. She continues on. So why do Spanish people, these authorities, have these? Again, they're wondering, what is happening? Who are our allies? What's happening there? So all this information is to check what they're doing. Then Mrs. Wright spoke, talking about Bernardo de Galvez, saying what she and past President General Lynn Forney Young, also from Texas, had been discussing.
He's an established patriot. Like I said, we're from Texas, and we think he belongs to us. We didn't know he belonged to Louisiana.
And it was in Mississippi.
That's just so important to us that our administration has developed a pin that we all wear on our official ribbons, and we would love for you to have one. We'd love for you to have one. We're so proud and privileged to even see the documents that describe his service to the American colonies, not the British colonies.
That's right. They say like that.
Evermore, I will say the American colonies. This has been one of the most joyous presentations we have ever seen as members of the DAR.
Well, thank you
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Isn't it something? When we think about our own archives, our own records of what our country went through at that time, do we really even realize how many countries were looking at the American colonists at that time to see what was happening and keeping these records? What friends we have there in Spain. For me, I feel like this takes the story of Bernardo de Galvez and what he did and makes it all the more rich with insight. We leave you today with this quote by John Adams when defending the British soldiers on trial for the Boston Massacre. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of the facts and evidence. Well, thanks for listening, and be well, dear friends. Let's celebrate the stars and stripes forever, and remember, with all of your ancestors behind you, you are the result of the love of thousands. Well, this podcast was written and produced by our incredible team of writers and editors, and we are, as always, so grateful for President General Pamela Edwards-Rouse Wright and Historian General Suzanne Heskey for their constant guidance, to Anthony Startz for being so generous with their time. The National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is a nonprofit, non-political, volunteer women's service organization dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and securing America's future through better education for children. Members are all lineal descendants of those who supported the cause of independence in the Revolutionary War. For more information, please visit dar.org. This is the DAR Today podcast.